Hopefully you've got a nice room for your yoga mat. Even if you don't have a yoga mat, you just have to have as much room as a yoga mat. Try to be so you can be reaching off the mat. You're not right up against a wall or a heavy piece of furniture. And then blocks, you'll see me use blocks. I'll encourage the use of blankets. And so then make sure you also have something to drink so you can wet your whistle. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me. Let's get settled in so we take advantage of this time. If it's comfortable, let your eyes completely close. And before you get too comfortable, let's shrug our shoulders up by our ears. Maybe even squeeze our face. I don't know if you can see me squeezing my face together. Take a big inhale and then exhale. Let it all go. And then do that a couple more times. So like squeeze your shoulders are up by your ears. You're totally shrugging. You're squeezing your eyes and pulling your nose, and you're taking a big inhale, and then do it again. Squeeze up, hold, and then let it go. And so you're physically shrugging off what has come before so you can be right here, right now, in the present moment. And make sure that your legs are comfortable. Don't let your toes get tingly. Don't let your feet get tingly. Make sure you rearrange before that happens. And so now, see if you can maybe settle in, maybe a little quicker. It comes a little bit easier on your breath. Maybe your eyes are closed. Maybe they're not. If they're not closed, just have a slight gaze a few feet in front of you. Not really focused on anything. And let that breath come in and out of your body. You're slowly setting aside all that's going on, coming out of that awareness of your outer life to be in that awareness of your inner life, your inner landscape. This is where you contemplate and reflect. This is where you align, right? Or get rid of, lose what doesn't serve you. Let that breath get full and deep, and when you're ready, start to do the 3-part yoga breath. This is where you fill up the lower third of your lungs, middle third of your lungs, and then the upper third of your lungs, and then let the upper third release, then the middle third, then the lower third. And it's a subtle movement in your lungs, and it might take a while for you to connect and feel it. You don't have to. Sometimes it helps to exaggerate it, but you don't have to. And you can let that breath get as full and deep as feels good. As you fill up the lower third, if it feels good to you, press that navel right into the space in front of you. Then that middle third fills up. Feel those ribs move up and apart. The breath moves into the upper third. Feel that heart move up in your chest. You can physically lift yourself into the space. And then exhale. Heart and chest relax. Ribs move down and together. And then you pull that navel back and up into your body. And then you're in charge of how much attention you want to put on that navel, coming up into your body and pressing out into the space in front of you. But try to have the awareness of that navel as your home base, your starting place. That's where you began, was your navel. We don't really think about our navel. We were, of course, attached to it for 9 months or however long we were in the womb. And it kept us alive. And then once we're born, we promptly forget or don't use it. So use that awareness of that place right there behind your navel, and you're pressing it out, pulling it back in, pressing it out, pulling it back in. As you breathe, that's connection. That's the rhythm of the universe. That's the heartbeat of everything, and you have it, just like everything else does. So connect to it. Make sure that your legs are comfortable. Start to adjust your girdle so you start to feel supported. Pull that back body down, lift that front body. Press your knees away, flex your feet so you feel that connection with that, your whole self, and feel how that starts from within. So you're pressing down to feel that connection. And then, same time, as you're pressing down, lift yourself up to stretch up into that space around you that you're meant to take up, right? You've got that whole circle of consent around you at all times. Stretch up out into it as much as you can. So this is not only pressing down and lifting up, but it's going right, left, east, west. And you're breathing full and deep. That upper girdle is engaged. You're lifting the hearts, pulling the blades down, engaging them, not squeezing them together. But they're engaged in order to support that front body. You might feel that slight stretch on your collarbone, top of your shoulders. Remember, any of this engagement you do not have to do or relax at any time. That whatever serves you, letting yourself breathe full and deep. And then bring your hands to your heart. Take some time to bow to yourself and offer yourself gratitude and whatever intention that you might be personally working on. Take 2 to 3 big deep breaths as you focus in on that and decide what works for you. And then together, you can leave your eyes closed or you can crack them open. Keep those girdles engaged. Keep those shoulders anti-shrugged out of your ears as you reach up above. So you feel that nice stretch down your back and your side body. And then pull into your heart center. So it's like you're gathering up all that good juju that you just churned up with just sitting there breathing. Pulling down into your heart center. And then after the third one, you can pause. Here's where if you're sitting up on something, you might want to bring yourself off of it just so you feel nice and supported. You can let those legs unwind. I'm already going to strip off my socks. I always start with like a whole bunch of layers. I have a yoga teacher that always teases me about the pile of laundry that's laying next to my yoga mat as I practice a class. So yes, I want you to feel comfortable. That's what makes me feel the most comfortable. And I want that for you as well. It is amazeballs when you do exactly what you need to do for yourself and it feels amazeballs and you're comfortable and you like it. All right, you're dropping those knees side to side. Try to stay lifted up off those limbs. I'm not putting all my weight back here. I am already getting that trunk to be doing that work. That trunk is what is holding you up. And then after a couple more of these, then we're going to come back into, and I'm going to turn just to the side so you can see me. Excuse me, just come into a nice seated easy pose, which is your legs crossed, and they don't have to be super tight, and you can even not even have them crossed. You can be in a butterfly. This is where I have the soles of my feet together, and my hands are just going to gently be on my legs. I'm not holding on for dear life, and I'm still lifting up, trying to find that sitting bone. I'm going to inhale, think about trying to bring that heart up, press that belly out, try to keep those girdles engaged. Exhale, curl. So we're doing cat and cows. So you really got to engage that. I didn't even go through all that stuff that we typically go through in a cat and cow. You want to try to put this movement in your middle back. So try to keep bearing down with your whole self. Try to keep lifting up with your whole self. I'm pulling that navel in and doing that big C curve and then pulling up into the cow. Inhaling. I'm not even really using my hands on my legs, but you can get a nice little extra stretch. But I don't want you to hurt yourself. I don't want you to pull too hard that you leave bruises or anything. All right, after a couple more of those, hopefully keeping that girdles engaged, feeling that stretch right above, right in that middle back. So it's right where the rib cage is. All right, you're going to release. Here's where you reset. Bend those knees, drop them side to side for a little reset. Or maybe you think, oh no, I want to do a little bouncy bounce. And you can do a combination of any of it because it all feels amazing. All right, back into, now we're going to come into a butterfly position. If you weren't in one before, now you're going to come into one. And it doesn't have to be like I said, super tight in. I want you to play around with what feels good. Blocks are a wonderful help, especially if you're still not quite warmed up or still early in this practice. So get that girdle engaged, pull that back body down, lift that front body. This is the heart and the navel going up. It is the blades and your dimples, glutes going down. And we're going to reach forward into, so try to stay lifted and hinge as we come forward into that butterfly hinge. That's what I'm going to call it, a butterfly hinge. And I am breathing full and deep. I've got my arms on blocks. I've got my heart still lifted. So I get this wonderful stretch on the insides of my legs and then also down my backside. And you are breathing full and deep, and you can always move your legs closer or further away to adjust your intensity and how much it feels in your body, right? You're always taking care of you. If you've come really far forward, lift up a little bit so you can walk to, I'm walking to the right. I'm keeping both glutes grounded, and then I am stretching. I am taking my heart and my navel together to the right, and I'm keeping that shoulder girdle engaged and that lower girdle, and now I'm getting not only the stretch on the inside of the legs and the back down the body, now it's down that whole left side. I'm reaching to the right. So whatever side you're reaching, you're going to get the stretch down the opposite side, and try to keep those girdles engaged. And if you're like, what is she even talking about? I'm talking about your upper girdle and your lower girdle, your pelvis and your chest, your pectorals. And those two girdles, those activation of those is what is going to activate your trunk and help you move, help you be mobile and flexible. All right, I'm still lifted a little bit. Now I'm releasing and coming through to the other side. So I want that beautiful, delicious, nice stretch. Same thing. I'm still bearing down. I'm reaching to the left. So I'm bearing down with that right. I'm even bearing down just a little bit extra with that right glute, just to make sure it's not popping up off the floor. And you have to adjust your legs in order to find that place. And then I'm getting this wonderful, delicious stretch right down my oblique. I'm keeping those shoulders engaged, and I'm still trying to lift my heart. I got this big sweatshirt on because even though I have my heat on, it's still freezing in my house because it's freezing in the state I'm in. Inhale. Maybe you're in a warm place. That's awesome. All right, let yourself, we'll be warm again. I love the season, so I actually don't mind it. But all right, we're going to come around, come up off that butterfly stretch. This is where you bring those legs together and then drop those knees side to side in whatever position feels good. Maybe it's a bounce. I am going to grab, we're going to stay on our seated position for just one more thing. I'm going to take a drink. We're going to come to that place where the knees are bent and the feet are on the ground. I'm going to move these. And this is a hard pose. And you really sometimes have to come down in here and move this wonderful lower belly out of the way to find that place of support. Now, if it's too taxing, you can have your hands gently on, just gently on a block. It's like a little kickstand, but it's not holding all your weight. I'm really trying to get you to train your trunk to hold you up. And you should feel this, a pinch right there at your hip sockets. And you're pulling that pelvis into that place of support. And you can stay right here, hands on the outsides of the knees, not pulling super hard. So you're just gently lifting, or you've got your hand back as a little kickstand. Don't hyperextend that elbow. Stay right here if that's all you want. But if you're like, yeah, I got it, and you don't roll back too far on your tail, you can lift so if you come way back and you're squishing your tail, then bring your feet back down and just live right here until, you're going to build up the strength to get to that place where and if you're holding on to the back of your legs, you're not holding on for dear life. There are delicate tendons back there. All right, take another inhale. We're going to bring the soles of the feet together, and we're going to release back into that butterfly stretch to get that wonderful reset. So we started with our feet down, and then if you felt comfortable, you lifted your feet. And you can decide at any time to bring your feet down. You don't have to um, have your feet up off the floor. And I already know, since we're working the trunk, right, this is where we're working the part of your body where it tends to fire, where your fire lives, right there in your lower trunk. I know I'm going to get warm, so I'm already going to take my sweatshirt off. All right, back into that beginning position. So maybe you move the flesh out of the way, and you feel it, you breathe deep. It shouldn't be too painful, but it should feel a lot of sensation. And then you're deciding if you want to lift those legs. And then if you want to reach those arms wide and even lengthen those legs, remember, you can also have those feet down, and you could be playing around like this. Inhale and exhale. We're holding and breathing. We're keeping, so you're holding the pose, but not holding your breath, and you might be shaking. I am. Take a big inhale, and then exhale. Bring it all down into that wonderful. So now, do let yourself just, you can round a little bit but it's more like a nice protected round where you're in that cat stretch. So you're pulling your navel up and you're pulling down that back body. You're pulling your navel up and pulling the back body down at the same time. So you're in that protected cat stretch. So you're getting that space in that upper back. All right, last thing in this pose. This is so good for training. I'm sorry, I'm pulling down. I have like 3 shirts on and they're all like bunched up. So that's my problem, not yours. All right. Anyway, this is really helping to strengthen that lower girdle and that upper girdle, and then the muscles in between, right, to keep you lifted into the space around you. Remember, the feet never have to come up. If you want to bring those arms in front and then rotate the heart, you're keeping your navel. And remember, the feet can be down, whether it's the whole foot, the toes, or the heel. So I am rotating the heart to over each knee. I'm keeping my navel nice and solid and squared between my legs. Inhale and exhale. Couple more. And then you're going to pause with the soles of your feet together and let yourself come down completely over those legs, breathing full and deep. Navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. And then, hopefully you feel that right there in your center. I know the words you've heard your whole life have been abs and core, right? I'm trying to get you to focus on the whole trunk, everything, this whole piece. So you use this whole piece. I mean, this front body and this and your core, which I guess people usually think is right here. That's so important, but it's not. It doesn't work unless you got the girdles engaged to help support you. All right, bring yourself back into a table and then back into a child. So take your time getting there, and I say bring some cushion for your knees. You can, and this is where you got to play around with what works best for you. I don't want it to be so high that you don't feel stable and supported, but I don't want it to be so thin that you're like, oh my God, my knees, this is killing my knees, and I never want to do yoga, because that is not cool. I want you to find that place that works for you. All right, you are breathing full and deep. You're in your child, staying with your breath, inhaling and exhaling. Navel, ribs, chest, exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. And then when you're ready, bring yourself up into the stable table position. So this is where you bring your knees right underneath your hips. You bring those hands right underneath those shoulders. You do not hyperextend your elbows. I'm showing you how I'm keeping a nice soft bend in my elbows. And then I'm doing the teeny tiny pelvic tilt just to find that place of support. Pull that back body down, lift that front body, and then the shoulder blades together, pull them apart. Still don't hyperextend those elbows. Keep those shoulder blades pulled apart, and then that middle back is where you're trying to really send the breath and the awareness to that middle back as you move through your cat and cow. So feel your rib cage come down between your arms, your chest come down between your arms. And the back sway a little bit as you keep pulling that tail down, and hopefully then as you pull that tail down and that back sways a little bit, you feel that wonderful stretch that comes with that. Couple more. Inhale and exhale. And then when you feel complete, let yourself rest back in a child again. This is where you walk your knees as far apart as feels good. I still want you to stay in a stable child where you're pulling that back body down and lifting that front body, and you're doing that always no matter what position you're in. When you find that awareness and you tap into that power and then start to activate that, it feels amazing, because it's like you're always grounded and you're always aiming and stretching and lifting into the next place. And I know dancers and athletes feel that all the time, but it's not just for them, right? It's for everybody. Everybody should be able to feel that. All right, now I am going to come back into table, and I'm going to, I want to stay facing you, because what we're going to be is on the side. So if you're doing opposite limbs than I am, just make sure you're paying attention. So I'm going to come into that table position. I've got my blocks a little bit in front of me to help me. My knees are still on a cushion. I'm going to rotate at the knee my right leg, and you can't see it because now it's going behind, but it's just a little bit to make it a little, just like it's like kicked back there. And then I'm going to stack my left hip on top of my right hip and open into this knee down side plank. And this is where, if you feel like it's too far on the floor, you can bring yourself up. Like if you're like still falling down, you can bring yourself up on a block. I love to bring myself up onto a block. I like to put myself on a pedestal. I want you to do the same. It feels amazing. All right, don't hyperextend that elbow. Make sure that right knee, if it is not in a place that's supported, like if it's way back here and you're like, this is not good, take some time to move that right knee so it's right underneath your right hip. And then try to bring awareness to your navel and your heart, and you're trying to open them up to the sky as you rotate then your blades and your dimples and glutes down to the floor behind you. And then making sure that right leg is supporting you and is underneath you, you're going to lift yourself into your gate. Make sure you feel supported. Use whatever you need. And then let yourself stretch over that extended left leg. That's what mine is. And I've got my kneecap pulled up into my thigh, and I've got my whole left foot up off the floor. Sometimes you'll see people with their foot smeared down, right? It's whatever works for you. I like to keep my toes and my knees always pointing in the same direction. It's just a stable and sturdy way to go through life. I encourage you to pay attention and do the same. All right, we're going to play around a little bit. Here's where you're really engaging that lower trunk. You're pulling that back body down, lifting that front body. This is where the block comes in super handy too. You're going to inhale and dip down with that right side. This is like I'm a little teapot, and then lift yourself back up to stretch a couple times, just because, why not? Inhale. You can let that arm totally stretch to feel that whole. It just depends on what feels good to you. You should be feeling this down by both sides, and I hope your whole body is feeling alive and amazing. Stretch that arm over. You're going to let yourself, make sure you're protecting yourself as you now rotate your trunk, your navel, and your heart back to square at the mat. You bring that left leg down, you bring that right leg back, and then let yourself settle back in a child. So you take a few breaths and notice what it feels like after doing all those moves on that one side. Inhaling and exhaling. Take time to take a drink if you need to stay hydrated. And if you are engaging that trunk the way I'm recommending by pulling that back body down and lifting that front body, you're getting deep into those nooks and crannies and that muscle memory, those transverse abdominis muscles that are deep, deep, deep inside of you, that if you work those, then you will be mobile your whole life. You'll be able to drive your whole life. You'll be able to do all your chores your whole life. You're like, chores? I'm like, yeah, chores. That's what I like to talk about, chores. It's all for the chores. All right, I'm turning around just so I stay facing you. We're back up into that table. Now I'm going to be on that left leg. I've got those hands underneath my shoulders. I'm not hyperextending those elbows. At the knee, I just gently let that left leg turn out, and then I'm rotating, like I'm stacking now the right side on top of the left side as I reach with that right arm. I've got that left hand on the block. I'm not hyperextending that elbow, so it's nice and supported. And I think my knee could be a little bit more underneath my hip, and that helps me to activate. I'm doing all that. I'm always doing all that stuff. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I am doing that stuff. I am pulling my back body down. I am lifting my front body. I'm engaging my girdles, and I am always training them to get my trunk into that place of support. All right, here's where you lift up. Inhale, take your time. It doesn't, if you wobble and move around, as long as you don't hurt yourself, you're going to be okay. Keep pulling that kneecap up into your thigh and let yourself stretch for that nice, beautiful, fabulous oblique side stretch. Inhale and exhale. Try to keep those girdles engaged. So you're lifting that heart, shoulders out of your ears. You're always doing this anti-shrug movement, trying to keep those shoulders out of your ears. All right, I think that's one of the best things I've ever learned in my whole life. That and how to type. All right, down to, that was like the only thing in high school I learned, is how to type. Well, like that I took with me, right? All right, lift yourself up. That's sad commentary on American public schools, but I actually went to a good school. It doesn't matter. Just move back and forth. I like to jibber jabber, I know. I guess I can be sometimes annoying, but I think it helps to stay in the moment. This is where I want you to be as you move. Inhale and exhale. Couple more, and then when you feel complete, make sure that you're protecting yourself. Keep lifting that front body. Keep bringing down that back body and press yourself back into your child. Really reset into that place of as much as you can, like really just be with yourself and your breath. Try not to move on to the next thing. Try not to move back in time. And here's where, if you want to come into a downward dog, I mean, you probably already have if you wanted to, right? I want you to encourage you to do what feels good to you, but let's come into that downward dog. And if you don't really like downward dog, or it's just not something you're feeling, that's okay. Stay in that stable table. Being in table and working on all that alignment that's so good. And you can also still work on alignment in that child. You do not have to be up in the fullest expression of anything. But try to keep those shoulders out of your ears as you are in this downward dog. Do not hyperextend those elbows. Keep those knees really bent and find those balls. Yes, you can stretch on the toes. That feels great, but I want you to settle in on your balls, and your heels may or may not touch. Inhale and exhale, and then you're going to make your way to the front of your space, whether you drop down to hands and knees and step up, or with one foot and then the other, or you walk up one foot and then the other, lifting your lower girdle up a little bit higher as you drop your upper girdle. I know, I'm messing with you, right? Now I'm talking about your upper girdle, and drop it down. Keep those knees bent. You're in a great big hinge here. Try to find that length, especially in that low back as you are moving. You can also move that wonderful flesh out of the way to get a little bit closer, and you can also use blocks, chairs, the wall, whatever feels good, in order to help you get into the deep forward fold position. This hinge position, this is so good for conditioning your body. Now, play around with coming back on the heels and up on the balls and toes, and then find that place of in between, and make sure those feet are pointed towards the short edge. And then you're going to bring yourself up. You're going to put the weight in your back body. You're going to inhale halfway into that flat back. Your hands can be wherever feel comfortable. Exhale, hinge back into that forward fold. Your knees are as bent as they need to be, right? Inhale, halfway, flat back. This is you putting stuff in your dryer. Exhale, down to the floor, right? Loading your dishwasher. This is what I'm talking about, the chores. You got to do this stuff the rest of your life. All right, now, if you want to reach up in that great big reverse swan dive, go for it. If you're like, nah, I'm not feeling it, come up halfway, flat back, hands above your knees, press up into that awkward chair, and then press up. I'm not going to really ever have you round, except in that Careful cat, because that rounding can be so hard on your spine, especially as you get older. And that's where all the the osteoporosis and the all the other things start to happen and take a toll. All right, after you stretch, your hands come to your heart, your navel, one of each out to the side. This is where you return to that place right there behind your navel, right there in front of your tail, right? Find where your tail would be. Does it, we don't think about our navel, but then no one thinks about where their tail would be. And if you spend any time paying attention to how mammals move around in the world, all mammals are using that tail except for the human mammal. We're not using our tail like we should. And so that's what yoga helps you to, especially the way I teach it, this mindful movement method about really engaging in behind that navel in front of your tail to come into your mountain. You are finding those balls and heels, either a tripod or four corners, whatever makes sense in your head. This is the band underneath your toes, all your toes. Try to lift as many and as much as you can and stretch them and then bring them down one piggy at a time. Doesn't matter if you start with the big or the little. Play around. It's on you to figure out what feels good. But your toes really never do anything but look pretty. Kneecaps come up into your thighs. Don't hyperextend those knees, and then you tilt that pelvis. You are moving framework and muscle. You're moving the back body and the lower body down, and you are moving the upper and the front body up to come into that place of support. It is definite muscle engagement, but it's also that framework adjustment. And then navel dimples. You are solid down. Navel dimples up. Here's where I want you to float. You're light as a feather. Lift that heart, that anti-shrug move, that nice stretch on your collarbone, arms reaching down at your sides, your elbows protected, your hands open with the palms exposed. Your chin is parallel with the floor, and you're always moving in all the directions. You're pressing down to root in, and you're lifting up to stretch, and you're also stretching to the right and left to take up all that space in your circle of consent, breathing full and deep. And then come to the long edge of your space. We're going to play with a couple variations of triangle. So I've got my blocks. I'm going to bring my legs long. I'm going to turn my right toes to that short edge of the space. So I'm externally rotating my right leg at this hip socket, keeping that right knee pulled up. I'm keeping my left knee pulled up and internally rotating that left leg at the hip socket, but I'm keeping the trunk nice and square. This is where you keep that solid lower body, and then you hinge. And if your stance isn't quite big, if your stance is too far or too close, this is where you adjust. And I'm even going to stack up 2 blocks and then move that back leg back a little bit to then open up into my triangle. You really are trying to get to a place where you're not putting your weight, where you should be putting your weight on anything, but even using anything to hold you up, because you're holding yourself up here at your trunk. Inhale and exhale, navel and heart. Keep awareness of how they're stacked on top of each other. You're going to lift yourself up into that upright position. Now, I want you to bring that back leg and bring the toes now so they face that short edge. You might need to use support in order to do that. Now, I want you also to come like you're on, before you were on like a tightrope or a balance beam. Now I want you to be on railroad tracks, left leg behind, right leg in front, and then use those blocks as you lower, you hinge, and then bring that left arm down. So now you can use blocks or you can have it on the floor. If you're on the floor though, I like your shoulder as high as your hip. So if you're down on the floor, your shoulder is probably lower than your hip. But if you're comfortable, just as long as you're not hurting yourself. All right, but to really get a really good stretch here, keep awareness on your navel. You're not moving your navel. I want you to wind your heart to the right. Inhale and exhale. I like to also do this pose with the block. Like that is what you're looking for, is that nice flat back. And so getting those hips nice and square in order to come into that position. All right, here's where you engage those lower bodies and that back body to lift yourself up. So you've unwound from that twist open. Gonna bring yourself back now. You were standing into, and I like to move around and settle in. It feels like I'm standing on steps. We're gonna move to the other side, stack up the blocks. I've got my left toes turned. I'm on a balance beam. I'm keeping my kneecaps pulled up, and I'm right between those legs. So before, I haven't really externally rotated anything yet because I've just moved my legs out. I've got my kneecaps and my toes pointed in the same direction, and I'm going to keep doing that as I externally rotate the left leg now to the left side, and I internally rotate the right leg, and then I'm still trying to come down in between. So you should feel this all at your sockets. That's where the secret sauce is happening. So your navel and dimples are solid, and then you're going to hinge. That's what this is. It is a triangle hinge, and you're going to breathe full and deep. Stay with your breath. Take your time lifting yourself up. That's where you're lifting, is with that trunk. Bring that back leg forward a little bit. You want to still be wide. Move your legs to those railroad track positions, and then you are hinging in that pyramid pose to bring that right arm down. Navel stays where it is, and you rotate the heart now to the left, breathing full and deep. Stay with your breath. Try to have that nice flat back. Keep pressing evenly through both back pockets. All right, lift yourself up. Take your time. You've unwound. You're engaging that lower body. Keep those kneecaps protected, and bring yourself back to standing with your hands at your heart, navel, one of each, out to the side, whatever feels good to you, breathing full and deep. And then the next step we're going is relaxation. You've done some really great stuff here. I want you to take your time coming down. Don't just, do a dead drop down to your relaxation. I want you to take your time. Stay with your body. Downward dog feels marvelous for a few breaths. If you're like, no, I'm just going to go right to that table and rest in that child, then do that. You don't even have to be in your downward dog for very long. Let yourself breathe full and deep, and then take your time getting to your back. And when you get to your back, make sure you've got, and this is where if you've taken off any layers, go ahead and maybe have them near you or put them back on, so you will not be chilly as you cool down, because as you cool down, right, you're going to get chilly. So if you have your sleeves and your layers near you, you can have them back on. And before you settle into relaxation, let yourself move however feels good on your back. I want you to still try to spread yourself out as wide as you can into the space around you. So this means letting yourself melt into the mat and stretch yourself out as much as feels good. And then whether the feet come up off the floor or not is up to you. And this is a great place where you play around. Pull that lower body and that back body down. So you're pressing into your feet and pulling that pelvis. You can really play around. It should be really loose here in the seated or this laying down position, and it might feel different depending on your position, but be in that supported position. And then if you do that, you're in that supported position. Then when those feet come up into happy baby and you reach for the soles of your feet or anywhere on your legs, or maybe you just go for your pant legs, it is getting that stretch down your whole back of your trunk, which is amazing. So move however feels good to you. And then settle in to your relaxation. Unless, right, maybe you've got some sinus issues, and if you lay down, your nose starts to clog up or you start to cough, sit in meditation with. Please let yourself really rest and soak up all the wonderfulness of your practice. And then find yourself in your relaxation mode. Take some time here, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, to either lay in relaxation and let your body incorporate all of the stuff that we've just done, or you can also sit in meditation. The same thing happens. But the point is to relax and sit and let it integrate. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste. Take care of yourself. Bye.